Hello and welcome to Digital Disruptors. I'm Gabriella Power. I'm here at the 2022 ACS Reimagination Thought Leaders Summit in Sydney. The world has changed significantly since the coronavirus outbreak in 2020, but technology has enabled companies and teams to adapt, to grow, and even unlock new opportunities. Reimagination is all about inspiring and learning from the innovators, disruptors and leaders who are making a difference. Disruption has become such a large part of tech culture and community, but how do we ensure the market embraces and engages with innovation? Emma, it's so great to be with you. What is it like for you being up here, being part of this panel at the Reimagination Thought Leaders Summit, speaking to some of the tech minds here? How important is it that we have events like this after the past few years of COVID?
Look, so important and so excited to be back face to face. It was actually, I was, obviously paying a lot of attention on the panel just now and really engaged with the panel, but I was also counting, who was out there in the audience, and, just was so fantastic to see so many different faces, some familiar faces as well. I think we've really missed this, and it just hasn't been the same over the past couple of years for sure. So this feels like the beginning of a new era again.
Now, on the panel, we spoke about trust and trust in technology. You also spoke about the importance of having conversations and how they're not really that easy all the time.
Well, I think that when you're having a conversation about trust, and particularly in the context of data, which we spoke about on the panel, there are so many different perceptions and perspectives around what that conversation can be about. And, in the context of which we operate, which is in the grain supply chain, so many different participants with, who come from such diverse backgrounds. And it's really, a conversation that can sometimes be difficult to have with everyone at the same time. It's time consuming in that, you need to get out there and have that conversation. But, trust is like Rome, not built in a day. And it's still not just a byproduct of technology, but also a byproduct of relationships and, and person-to-person interactions, I believe.
You were speaking about trust in your panel discussion, and you spoke about how trust really needs to start from the top. Why is that?
Well, I think there's many examples of organisational failures. You could be a government agency, could be a publicly listed business, could be a founder-led business, and when, let's say, Joe on the panel said the tone is one part, and I think that's important, but if you don't have the foundations, it's the same as anything. If the building blocks are not there, then people actually don't know how to sometimes behave, with place or the world, or, as humans, we've got dilemmas every day. It's not easy in the workplace to always know what's right and wrong. I'm constantly, talking with people about, maybe it's a change we want to bring about, and I'm saying, what do you think of this? So it's not just, I'm just not always going to know what it is, but I want to hear views from other places. So, you want to be able to make sure that people understand not just the difference between right and wrong, but there's so much grey. Really, we work in the grey. To be effective today, you have to be able to work in the grey. And so if you don't have building blocks that actually give you some steerage or guidance, then it becomes incredibly difficult. So, that can't be bottoms up in an organisation. It really does have to come from the top.
Deputy Director of the Data Science Institute at the University of Sydney, Adam Berry, is a key player in driving innovation and digital disruption.
Technologies that you trust and technologies that drive trust, but I think all of that needs to sit effectively within an ecosystem of conversation and understanding that actually supports discussions of what trust is and how we actually deliver that. So you can have technologies that inspire trust, absolutely, but they only come to fruition if meaningful conversation around trust actually exists and is well propagated.
As our digital lives continue to evolve, there's never been a more important time to protect our data.
So often we sort of break down adversaries into three categories where we say, look, there are hacktivists, children, unskilled, unsophisticated actors. The 17-year-old guy, perfect example. And the second one, we say, well, there are people out there who are career criminals who are doing this for money. They have a sense of ROI, they will invest, they want a return from it. We see this every time your credit cards get stolen. And then there are nation-state actors. This is what we see on the TV every day at the moment. So if we look at it from that perspective, they are our three biggest threats, those three classes of actor.
Now, what do you think about password managers and banks?
I like banks.
Sometimes.
Well, first of all, I think everyone should have a password manager. Disclosure, I'm on 1Password's board, so take that under consideration, but a password manager like 1Password, where you put all of your passwords in there, you generate them so they're long and they're strong and they're crazy and they're random, and then you protect the password manager as well as possible. And for things like banks, like that's the most important stuff. If you're using the same password in your bank as other places, well, that's a worry. And if you don't have a password manager, eventually you end up reusing passwords somewhere or other.
So don't put your password in your notes on your iPhone?
Here's why I hesitate. The reason I hesitate is that if you were to do that and it was a unique password, that is still better than having one password in your head that's the same everywhere, because you get 17-year-old mate in the UK, he gets your password from like catforum.com or something, you've used that everywhere, and now he's into all of your things. And what I sort of do, let's say with my mum, she's in her 70s, I don't think I'm going to get her onto a digital password manager. She has a physical notebook. So now her threat actor is someone who can break in the house and steal that book, and that's much less likely than the 17-year-old kid.
Nikki Dobble specialises in cybersecurity recovery and technology transformations. So being clear with your vision, how else do you best prepare for the future?
Gosh, well, the future can be wide, and I think making sure that you can pivot very well, and pivot's a bit like an overused word, a bit like transformation, I think. But in that session, I was talking about people always focus on the scale of how they're going to scale their business, and I think you need to know that your business isn't always going to grow. Sometimes your business is actually going to shrink. So knowing what to do and how the future holds is making sure you're giving yourself options there. That's not always going to be about growth. What are you going to do when a pandemic hits and you work in travel insurance? You know, how are you going to be able to manage whatever comes at your way? Because it's not always going to be positive. How have you built your tech stack to be able to respond to anything that gets thrown at you?
Pivot, it is one of those words that we used a lot in the pandemic. There's a few of them. No. Pivot, work from home. There's a few terms that we have just used so much in the past few years.
My name is Tim Fong. I'm the co-founder and the CEO at Airtasker, and I must say this is the first time I've done an in real life event for about 2 years, so I'm a little bit nervous, and I was actually hoping that this morning we could try and, for the in-person folks here, try to build up a bit of energy in the room. So I'm going to be really cheesy and say and ask you all to say, when I say hell, you say yeah. So can I give a hell? Yeah! Hell? Yeah! Hell? Yeah! Okay, that's awesome. It's such a power trip when you're on a stage. You get to do stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
A company that has been able to transform a new world is Airtasker.
So at Airtasker, we wanted to gather the best of what we can get from being remote, as well as leverage the benefits of in-person working. And so as we articulated this to our team, we had to sit down and think, hey, what is it that we actually care about? So the first thing that we decided that we cared about at Airtasker is flexibility. So I think for all of our staff, it was really important that as we hired new staff, we were able to create flexibility for them to be able to balance their work life and their home life, and to entrust our staff to be able to come up with a balance that suits them. I think the second aspect is ensuring that there's vector alignment. Making sure that everybody is moving in the same direction, and that we're not just a bunch of individuals working on stuff, we are more than the sum of our parts. Thirdly, and something that probably isn't called out as much in designing a hybrid working structure, is the concept of accountability. So we thought deeply about this, and I think a lot of organizations, refrain from using this terminology when talking about, one of the reasons why in-person working was really good. I think that at Airtasker, what we realized is that when you're doing, when we're talking about in-person working, accountability in that respect, it's accountability to your peers and to your team. So it's not about me, the CEO, or the company trying to keep anyone accountable for following through. It's actually to do with teams. Lastly, we realized that one thing that was really important to us is network effects. And what we realized is that when you, if you ask everybody, hey, which day of the week do you want to come into the office, or when do you want to come into the office, you would get like a really, really separated response, because everybody is going to have their own reasons for wanting to be in the office or not being in the office on a particular day. And that fragments what everybody wants. When you do that, you kind of realize that, hey, when I go into the office, every day, 1/5 of people are there. And so when that happens, you're losing those network effects. So the solution that we designed and which we're really proud to be implementing is that we've found a balance here where we've empowered each team and said, hey, we're completely open to the way in which you want to work. So amongst your team, decide whether you want to work 1 day a week, 1 day a month, you want to come into the office, you want to be fully remote, etc. And once that team has decided on that methodology through which they want to work flexibly, they publish that onto our joint Slack channel. And then once we have that, that's what you stick to. And so we're balancing that idea of accountability and network effects. So we know everybody knows where everybody else is, and we have that degree of accountability and discipline in the way we work. But we're also combining that with flexibility for you to decide.
Coming up, how to overcome new challenges for you and your business. Welcome back to the 2022 ACS Reimagination Thought Leaders Summit in Sydney. As we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, new challenges have arisen for many businesses around the country. While business aims to attract and recruit the best talent, the focus is how do we keep them on home soil?
Yeah, I think there's a really positive lens to this, which is that demand is in the tech sector is globally scaling. And to me, I view this as the Australian technology sector is coming of age. I think a lot of startups are growing. We've got lots of unicorns now in Australia. This wasn't true 10 years ago. And naturally with that comes exponential demand for those skills. And, that's exponential growth is a very hard thing to fill. I think so some of the challenges, like just to call on what we're seeing at Canva, last year we had over 260,000 job applications and we ended up filling over 1,300 roles. So, we're very lucky to be in such an incredible position that we're attracting that kind of interest. But nonetheless, it's a very challenging technology market. We are absolutely feeling that. And I think one of the key areas that I think we're struggling is on those specialized skills, those areas where, Silicon Valley has decades of experience building out certain, for example, product management or say MarTech or various areas. These are places where Australia is still playing catch up, and I think that's making for a really, a bit of a pinch on talent.
Tom, great to be with you. I really enjoyed hearing from you on the panel. A few things came out of that. Can we talk about how do we attract the best tech talent in Australia?
Yeah, I think the first step has got to be inspiring people to get into the industry. What we know is that we are just not producing enough talent to meet the needs of the industry. The Tech Council's job is for us to have 1 million jobs by 2025, which is going to require more than 200,000 new people to enter the industry, and the biggest way that can happen is from reskilling from other industries. So we really need to tell the story about what great jobs tech jobs are. We know they're among the most highly paid, most flexible and most stable jobs in the Australian economy, which is why we're really excited to tell that story so that we can, first of all, just say, hey, this is something you may not have considered, but as we kind of come out of the pandemic, we really think it's something that Australians should consider.
So there's reskilling and then also inspiring younger people from the start to get involved in a career in tech. How do you do that?
Yeah, again, I think it's about telling those stories, right? So we need young people to to get inspired so that they want to study in either a vocational or university qualification in tech. And particularly we want to inspire young women because we know that they are severely underrepresented in terms of our university education and vocational education in tech. Only 1 in 10 people studying in Australia who are studying in a tech degree are women, and only 1 in 4 people in the tech sector are women. But we know that the pay gap between men and women is much lower in tech than in, for example, other highly paid industries.
As our lives become more digital, it's never been more important to protect our information and to have a better understanding of the value of data.
From the health industry, I guess.
Look, from a health perspective, it's really much the same. Realistically, our patients and citizens simply expect, government already knows, they expect us to simply know and then treat them appropriately, to do the modelling, to enable them to have better population health outcomes. There's a clear expectation. I think COVID really has brought it to the fore, where expectations have probably doubled or tripled on what they were 2 years ago. And I think what we're seeing is government always talks about evidence-based decision making, and it's a wonderful catchphrase and policy officers love it. I would say in the last 2 or 3 years, it's the first time I've actually seen it in action, where it's just a routine basis where you're actually making a decision, and COVID's a prime example. Decisions were being made daily by chief health officers around the country based on a lot of data and a lot of evidence. And those were data sets that we're bringing together with sort of a day's notice, 2 days' notice. You'd watch the press conference the day before and go, oh, okay, there goes the night. That's what we're doing tonight. We're now building a whole new data set or a data model around this to answer the questions the next day. And I think really the solid data and data that's reliable and available and without any doubt about its integrity is now central to what we do. And I can't see as we move beyond COVID going back to the bad old days before that.
Digivisor are Australia's leading social web analytics and activations technology company. How do we understand the value of our data?
I think at the heart, data is connected to the decisions you're making about your business, and your business will be based on customers. It'll be about empowering your employees. It will be about making good decisions as leadership. So data is core to that, and it should be seen as a very important part of your business in understanding how to get the best out of it, what questions you want to ask of it, that it's in a secure environment, it meets. We talked in the panel around the experiences we're trying to create for our customers, that they trust you as a brand, that you're managing the information that they're sharing with you or the touch points that they're having with you in a way that is actually beneficial to them. So that's how I see data. It's like just this lens of it's the way to do business, and it helps you make better decisions if you do it right.
Has our reliance on data changed throughout the COVID pandemic?
I mean, it did it escalated because it's just the scale and size. Companies obviously went into a hybrid or a complete remote situations. They had to learn to engage their customers, their employees, suppliers, anyone in their infrastructure, even legally, contracts and things that were moving. The physical bricks and mortar kind of thinking of the past had to go. And so these additional points of data, because of that digital footprint or the digitisation of business increasing, meant that businesses had to get their head around it and escalate their decisions around how to manage the scale that would have increased for them, the speed in which decisions or engagements, or in complete ways that they were actually serving their customers. Financial services is a classic one that had to really solve that quickly.
Named one of the top 100 Women of Influence 2019 by the Australian Financial Review, Melanie Tran continues to inspire.
The advice that I would give is to always start small. It's very easy to get lost and intimidated by how big our system is and all the systemic changes that need to happen. But start small. Start by influencing change in what you can control, whether it's the people you're surrounded by or the work that you do, or even just the areas that you're passionate about. Use your knowledge and your expertise and your own lived experience and your own story to start influencing that change in your way. And I guess there's no right or wrong way to do this because everyone's so different. It's just about how individuals can contribute in their own unique ways, whether it's big or small.
You spoke about your experience, the people that have shaped you and influenced you, and your turning point when you wanted to make a difference. Can you talk to us about that and when you make that decision?
I think there were multiple points, there were multiple pivotal moments, I think, and that sort of led me to where I am right now. And I think I certainly stumbled across probably different paths that weren't the best, but I learned a lot from that. And I think what's really made the difference, it's not the knowledge, like my knowledge in the disability sector or my experience, or my knowledge in the design sector. I think what has made a really big difference for myself and my own personal journey, it's the people around me.
There's one thing we can all agree on at this year's conference: the joy of being back here in person.
I think the value for me today is the fact that I get to meet people that perhaps, I've only spoken to on the phone, like Michelle I've only ever seen on video conference. So getting to see these people, again, collaborating and I don't know, it just makes me feel good and excited that I get to not be on a screen and walk around a room, and that in itself is good before any of the other topics come up today.
I've been speaking to so many people tonight and they're saying after COVID and we're all getting back together in person, like it's just amazing to be together. I've met so many amazing people, like they've all come with, their different backgrounds and they're here sharing them tonight, so yeah, it's just really cool.
I'm just totally uplifted myself by actually listening to the speakers and sitting on a panel. I haven't done it for a couple of years, and I'm thinking this is absolutely what we need to do to get the tech community back, all communities back actually, so it's super important. ACS has always done a magnificent job really attracting people in, embracing all ranges of people in tech, and it's great to be here.
That's all for this year's ACS Reimagination Thought Leaders Summit. It's hard not to feel inspired by the many faces that are causing a digital disruption here and around the world.
This program brought to you by ACS.